Bismillah, alhamdulillah. As-Salatu was-Salam ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Allahumma alimna ma yanfa'una wa anfa'na bima 'allamtana wa zidna ilman ila ilmina wa la hawla wa la quwwata illa billahi al-'ali al-'azim. Inshallah, we'll continue with reading from the book known as Iqtidaa us-Siraat-il-Mustaqeem بمخالفة أصحاب الجحيم لشيخ الإسلام أبي العباس أحمد بن عبد الحليم ابن عبد السلام المعروف بابن تيمية رحمه الله تعالى al-Harrani, who died in the year 728 after the Hijrah. And we're in that section where he is talking about the ayat that prove the necessity of being different from the kuffar, whether in general or in specific, whether as an obligation or as an encouragement. And we're in those ayat that are in Surah At-Tawbah. And we've mentioned the first aspect of those ayat, where Allah mentions the comparison and the contrasting between, or the comparison and the contrast between the believers and the kuffar, and how the munafiqeen and the kuffar have a set of qualities, and those sets of qualities have entitled them to certain results, just as the believers have a set of qualities, and their set of qualities entitle them to certain results. And so Allah lays all of that down for us in these ayat. And like the author mentioned, in the arrangement of Allah to these qualities and to these results in his comparison, there are benefits and secrets that can be derived. But the author said that this wasn't the place of doing so. But instead, his objective was just to lay down a general principle that there is this contrast between the believers and the munafiqeen and the kuffar in general. And if this contrast is in what they do, then it leads to the contrast in what they get. And this is a principle that we all have to be aware of. The results follow the means, right? The things that you do lead to the results. So if you do what certain people did, you'll get what they got. And if you do what other people did, you get what they got. And if you've gotten something, then the reason you've gotten it is because you did what other people who have gotten it done. And that's really the point that he's making here. Why would you want to resemble the kuffar when you know what they got? And for that reason, Allah, as we're going to see now, is going to remind us about what some of the kuffar got. Because if that is what they got for what they did, then this is an encouragement to not be like them. And Allah is going to explicitly mention that fact in this ayah. Now, so we stopped at the statement, but we didn't get to talk about some of the benefit where the author, rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, وَلَهُمْ عَذَابٌ مُقِيمٌ, and for them is a severe punishment. So before going in and mentioning some of this is what they got and this is the result and the examples of it, this is still the comparison and the contrasting part of the ayah. The believers, what did they get? Does anybody remember? Rahmah. What else? Ajrun. And what else? Like, what's the comparison for adhabun muqim? Let's go back to the ayah. Allah says in the ayah, no, not there. Where's the ayah? What page is it on? No. Allah says, وَعَدَ اللَّهُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتِ جَنَّاتٍ تَجْرِي مِنْ تَحْتِهَا الْأَنْهَارِ. So Jannat is the contrast of Adhabun Muqim. And then he says, خَالِدِينَ فِيهَا, and Khalidina fiha is the contrast of Khalidina fiha hiya hasbuhum. When we talked about the munafiqeen, Allah said they will abide in the hellfire forever. That is it for them. So no, Jannat is the contrast of the nar. So if we look at the ayah, وَعَدَ اللَّهُ الْمُنَافِقِينَ وَالْمُنَافِقَاتِ وَالْكُفَّارِ نَارَ جَهَنَّمْ. The contrast of that for the believers is Jannati Adin. Right? Khalidina fiha hiya hasbuhum. They will abide therein forever. That's it for them. Adin, it doesn't move, right? It's fixed. As opposed to the believers, he says Khalidina fiha, and he mentions more. right? So theirs is only the hellfire. Well, the believers, they get وَمَسَاكِنَ طَيِّبَةٍ فِي جَنَّاتِ عَدْنٍ. وَرِضْوَانٍ, as opposed to the kuffar, they get what? La'na, right? La'na is to be kicked out of Allah's mercy, while the believers, Allah is going to be pleased with them. وَلَهُمْ رِضْوَانٌ وَرِضْوَانٌ مِّنَ اللَّهِ أَكْبَرُ ذَلِكَ هُوَ الْفَوْزُ الْعَظِيمُ, as opposed to the kuffar, وَلَهُمْ عَذَابٌ مُقِيمٌ. So the believers get a fawzun azim, while the kuffar, they get adhabun muqim. So what is this adhab al-muqim, right? What is this non-traveling punishment, this fixed punishment? Muqim means it doesn't leave, right? What is this punishment that is fixed? Man yaqra.
I haven't heard you in a long time.
تفضل. أي وقد
الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله أما بعد قال شيخ الإسلام رحمه الله وقد قيل إن قوله ولهم عذاب مقيم إشارة إلى ما هي لازم إلى ما هو لازم لهم في الدنيا والآخرة من الآلام الآلام نفسية غما وحزنا وقسوة وظلمة قلبي وجهلا فإن للكافر
You got an aleph there?
فإن
You got that part on the kafir. You got an aleph there?
ألف
On the word kafir. Is there aleph?
للكفر
There we go.
سبحان الله للكفر ومعاصي من الآلام العاجلة دامية ما الله به عليم ولهذا تجد غالب هؤلاء لا يطيبون عيشهم عيشهم إلا بما يزيل العقل ويلهي القلب من تناول مسكر أو رؤية ملهن أو سماع مطرب
You said it right.
مطرب ونحو ذلك ونحو ذلك.
نعم حسبه. قال رحمه الله تعالى, and I love this section. This section right here, I can't count the amount of times we mentioned just this section in the khutbah. This paragraph, memorize it. وقد قيل إن قوله ولهم عذاب مقيم إشارة إلى ما هو لازم لهم في الدنيا والآخرة من الآلام النفسية غما وحزنا وقسوة وظلمة قلب وجهلا فإن للكفر والمعاصي من الآلام العاجلة الدائمة ما الله به عليم ولهذا تجد غالب هؤلاء لا يطيبون عيشهم إلا بما يزيل العقل ويلهي القلب ومن تناول مسكر أو رؤية ملهن أو سماع مطرب ونحو ذلك. Any كلمات؟ تفضل. لازم اسم فاعل من لزمة. لازم. شوف فعل لازم, it doesn't go where? لا not necessity.
Squeeze.
Grab it, grab my hand. Grab my hand.
المفروض
It's tight,
Not tight.
hard, or
sticking.
لازم.
okay.
لا ينفك. لا ينفك.
ينفك.
نحن نقول فعل لازم جلس محمد. فعل لازم لا ينفك عن محمد. بينما فعل متعدي ضرب محمد عبد الحكيم. ها؟ هذا فعل متعدي. لكن فعل لازم، فأحيانا لازم يأتي بمعنى الواجب، لأن اللازم واجب، وأحيانا لازم يأتي بمعنى شيء لازم. فالعذاب يلزمه، يعني لا يذهب، لا يسافر، لا ينقطع، لا يذهب مكان ثاني. عذاب لازم. واضح؟ واضح؟ لازم
لهم في الدنيا.
هذا الشيء يلزمهم في الدنيا، هكذا معهم في الدنيا كل يوم كل مكان، هكذا معهم. يريد لا ما يذهب، هو لازم لهم في الدنيا والآخرة. النار يوم القيامة يذهب؟ لازم. النار يوم القيامة يلزمهم، لكن في الدنيا في نار؟ في الدنيا في النار؟ لا ما في نار في الدنيا، لكن في عذاب. في عذاب في الدنيا، وهذا العذاب لازم كل يوم، يوم الاثنين، يوم الثلاثاء، يوم الخميس، يوم الأربعاء، وهم في عذاب. ينام عذاب، يستيقظ عذاب، يأكل، يشرب، يعانق زوجته عذاب، يلعب مع أولاده، كل شيء عذاب. لماذا؟ لأن العذاب لازم. طيب غيره؟ الآلام ألم، ولهم عذاب أليم. جم ألم آلام. ها ملهن. طيب نبدأ بيزيل. إلا بما يزيل العقل، يذهب العقل. هذا أزال الكلمة، أزال الغبار، ها أزاله. أي نعم. ملهن من ألهى يلهي، اللهو. إنما هذه الحياة الدنيا لعب ولهو وزينة. فملهن شيء يلهيك. يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا يلهيكم، يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا يلهيكم ولا تلهيكم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا يلهيكم تجارة ولا بيع عن ذكر الله ومن يفعل ذلك فأولئك هم الخاسرون. يا أيها سبحان الله، أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تلهكم. هذا لأنه نعم، لا تلهكم أموالكم ولا أزواجكم عن ذكر الله، يعني لا يعني يجعلكم في غفلة. ها هذا اللهو لا مو enjoyment. شوف لا look. I want you to look. Okay, look. Just look. Just look at him. Look at him. Look at him. Look at him. Hey, Amr, كيف حالك?
Oh yeah.
What is that?
Distraction.
لا تلهكم من رؤية ملهن. هذا الشيء تنظر إليه مثل التلفاز. بعض الناس لا يستطيع أن يجلس بدون أن ينظر إلى التلفاز، لازم أن يكون التلفاز شغالة. لماذا؟ لأنه ملهن. لأنه كونه يجلس مع أفكاره، كونه يجلس ويفكر عذاب. فكيف ينسى العذاب؟ كيف ينسى العذاب؟ الكافر عذاب لازم. كيف ينسى العذاب؟ شرب الخمر، بعد شرب الخمر ماذا؟ ينسى العذاب. يشاهد تلفاز نوز كل شيء، بعدين ينسى العذاب. يسمع غنى ينسى عذاب. السوشيال ميديا ينسى العذاب، لأنهم دائما في عذاب. فملهن يعني أنه يلهيك، يذهب عقلك ويشوش عليك. غيره مطرب أطرب. هذا سماع مطرب يجعلك هكذا.
الأصل كلمة
أطرب، طرب هذا هو الأصل، لكن شيء مطرب يعني يجعلك يا هذا مطرب. يلهي من ملهن، نفس الكلمة. ملهن هو اسم فاعل، ألهى يلهي فعل مضارع.
It's the same one.
same كلمة just فعل.
Okay.
أي. بس طيب وقد قيل. تفضل. وقد قيل. الشيخ الإسلام رحمه الله تعالى, he says, and it's been said that. طيب who said it?
Oh, it's been said.
أي.
Allah.
لا. He given a tafsir.
It's been said.
وقد قيل إن قوله.
Y'all don't remember we talked about this? When you hide the person who said it? What's the reason you hide the person who said it?
Maybe he doesn't want him to know.
Maybe he doesn't want us to know who said it because that person has a problem. Right. Or, this is a good statement though. It's a really good statement. Why would he hide who said it?
Maybe because he said it?
Maybe because he said it. Maybe this is his tafsir of this ayah, right? We would look and see when we hit the other books of tafsir, does anybody else say this? Does anybody else explain this way? And if we find somebody else, then we can refer it back to who he's talking to. If we don't find anybody else, we say, Shaykh al-Islam, we know who said it now, right? وَقَدْ قِيلَ, and it's been said that the statement of Allah, and for them is an established punishment, is indicating ishara. It's pointing to what is binding upon them in this dunya as well as the akhirah. From the physical pains, al-alam al-nafsiyya, the personal suffering that they go through. From gham. Al-gham is worry, right? They're constantly maghmoom, worried. Wal-huzn, sadness, depression, right? Grief. Gham, they also translate as grief sometimes.
Distress, maybe.
Yeah. Wa qaswata qalb, a hardness in their heart. What kind of punishments do they suffer in this life? Worry, grief, depression, sadness, a hard heart, right? Wa dhulmatu qalb, a black heart. Their hearts don't have light. What other punishments do they suffer in this life? Jahl, ignorance. And these are just some examples of the punishments that they suffer in this life. Because their punishment is what? Muqim. So it's one in this life and one in the next. Why do they suffer these punishments? He says, فَإِنَّ لِلْكُفْرِ وَالْمَعَاصِي, because kufr and sins have a punishment or a pain, a suffering that they hasten upon the individual constantly. Only Allah knows the extent of it. When you sin, and this is an amazing point, when you sin, just think about the effects of sin. And a lot of scholars have written books about the effects of sin on the individual, on the community. When you look at a community like America, right? Why does America suffer the things that it does? And this is the way society is. It's because of the collective sinning that occurs in it. And that goes from the smallest household to the country at large. The sins have an effect on the individual and the community. How do sins affect? Like, think about this. How do sins affect?
Heart.
Okay, so they affect the individual who does them physically in his heart.
And physically on the punishment, maybe on his body or something.
And they affect the individual who does them physically because of the punishment they result in. These are two actual effects, right? So the sin, it's a sin. It affects you in your heart. It affects you physically with the punishment Allah puts on you in this life, or physically with the punishment that Allah puts on you in the next. It affects those around you because the sin is usually against them. So when you're sinning, you're usually doing something wrong to somebody else. But even if the sin isn't transitive, it affects those around you because your sin has an effect on those who interact with you, right? فَاتَّقُوا فِتْنَةً لَا يُصِيبَنَّ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا مِنْكُمْ خَاصَّةً. And protect yourself from a fitna that doesn't only affect those who were wrongdoers from you specifically. So the sins, they have an effect in so many ways. And these sins of kufr specifically, and acts of disobedience in general, they have a suffering that they produce that is rushed to the individual in this life. I mean, it's not every sin is just the punishment is in the next life, right? It's the punishment is rushed in this life and it is constant. And only Allah knows the extent of it. Ma Allahu bihi alim. Only Allah knows how bad it can get. The suffering that they go through, only Allah knows the reality of how bad these things can get. That's why you see an individual, for example, and this is why one of the qualities in Islam, especially in a day of social media, that the Muslim observes an enjoyment that nobody else has. We're not turned on or excited or amazed by the things that people show us. When we look at their social media feeds, when we look at their posts and how they're living and the money they show, the cars they show, the women they show, whatever they show, it doesn't affect us the way that it affects the kafir, right? It should, depending on our iman, should I say. And the reason of this is that you see these people with all of these things that they're showing. And the first time something bad happens, what do?
It affects them.
Yaqluq. They get shaken. They get worried. They get depressed. They get distraught. They get defeated. They might even kill themselves. A lifestyle that the common person, if they looked at them from the outside, they would say, what a great life they're living. A person has billions of dollars. He loses $1 billion. How does he feel? He has multiple billions of $2, $3, $20 billion. He loses $1 billion. How does he feel? Horrible, stressed. There was a story, an anecdotal story that they mentioned maybe 10, 15 years ago, 20 years ago now maybe. There was an individual who had $20 billion. He lost $1 billion. He killed himself. You say, why? A CEO of a corporation goes through a hardship. They lose a bad trade. And what does he do? He jumps out of his window. Why? Hey, it's not just the dunya. What you worried about?
Or divorce.
Or a divorce, his wife, right? Jump out of lahum adhabun muqim. And so those sins that they do, they have a punishment or a pain that they bring that is constant and rush to them in this dunya. It happens constantly and immediately. SubhanAllah. Only Allah knows the extent of how bad it can be. Walihada, and because of this constant pain that they are in, and that's like, this statement right here made me change the way I look at kuffar. Sometimes we can look at kuffar like with disdain, right? And it's real talk. Sometimes you look at a kafir, you're like, stupid kafir, dirty kafir. And you look at them with like disdain, in spite of the fact that if it wasn't for Allah, I'd be like them, right? But when you ask yourself, why are they like that? Why does everybody have to smoke weed all the time? Everywhere you go and it's weed, weed, weed. Why? For this reason, you find that the majority of them, they cannot find their life to be any good. La yutayyibun. Their life is not tayyib. Their life is no good unless they do things that remove their intellect. Because your intellect is how you perceive. If their perception is fully functional, what do they have?
Pressure.
Adhab. If their senses are working, if they can smell, what do they smell?
What you're supposed to.
Adhab.
Oh,
If they can see, what do they see? Adhab. If they can hear, what do they hear? If they can touch, if they can feel, what do they feel? Everything that their intellect allows them to do, it's going to be torment for them. And so for that reason, they cannot find any goodness in life unless it's removing some of their intellect. How many times has the kafir told you, Akhi, you don't smoke? You don't smoke a little bit?
you don't listen to music?
You don't listen to me? What do you do for fun? How do you enjoy yourself? Akhi, what will let you know that Iman, ladha. Iman has a sweetness. So, Nasallallahu ladhat al-Iman. Iman has a sweetness that they will never experience. And for them, they can't find any good in their life unless it's something that removes their intellect. Things that distract their heart. Whether it be using intoxicants, watching things that are distracting, listening to things that are rhythmic or that make you move, or things similar to that. And it's across the board. Think of every kafir, right? And it's not just the way that you think, right? Some of them watch TV. What do the really rich ones watch?
Some sick stuff, huh?
Think about it. I mean, not even going out into the 50 Shades, like behind closed doors. Just think of really rich people. What do they like looking at?
Soap opera? No, I mean like operas.
Operas, okay.
Yeah, sports.
Paintings.
Paintings.
Really rich people will stand in front of a painting and just look at it and think about it and contemplate over it. Why? It's distracting. So it's not always on the surface level that you're thinking about that it has to be they're watching pornography or they're watching TV or they're watching, sports events. No, people, even the rich ones, if they don't get to watch, that's why they care so much about a painting. I don't care about no painting. I don't have time to sit here and think about what motivated Picasso to draw this picture. I got more important things I need to figure out. You see what I'm saying? But because of them, if they don't have that, right? Listening to things that are distracting. Music, okay. That's one example of things that they listen to that are distracting. But what else do they listen to? Just things to preoccupy them. I got to wake up and hear the news every day. I gotta be involved in politics. I gotta know what's going on. Why you need Islam al-Marq?
They need to have like background music.
I gotta have something happening.
Conversation, some background sound.
Right? How come when we go to the restaurant there has to be music playing? Nobody's listening to it.
Right.
You go to all these restaurants and it's the same. Nobody cares about this elevator music. Nobody's listening to it, but let them turn it off. Hey, what are you doing?
Like they don't want to have any time to think.
Exactly. Because if they have time to think, عذاب. تفضل.
I wanted to ask you
تفضل.
something. Like, are we going to read this footnote here, or
لا.
are we going to pass it? Oh, okay.
You got something about it?
No, because it started.
This is the statement of the Sheikh. He says, وَلِذَلِكَ نَجِدُ كَثِيرًا مِنَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ الْيَوْمَ لَمَّا انْحَرَفُوا عَنْ دِينِ اللَّهِ وَارْتَكَبُوا الْمَعَاصِي وَكَثُرَ فيهم الخبث زادت آلامهم النفسية وقست قلوبهم وحرمت لذات الإيمان والطمأنينة. He's just saying the same things that we're talking about.
About the Muslims.
Yeah, that how the Muslims, when they left, remember, you do what they did, you get what they got. When the Muslims left what the Salaf did and started doing what the Kuffar did, we get what they got. He's just spelling it out more because it's an important note. أخذوا يرهبون من هذا القلق. They began to flee from this distress and this torture that they find themselves in with whatever they have at their disposals. مدنية الحديثية الزائفة, right? From the new aged social abilities that they have and the means of enjoyment and wasting time, whether it be intoxicants and drugs, music, بالإضافة إلى الوسائل الأخرى, and in addition to the other means that they have from that which this ummah has been afflicted with, like games, riyadiyat, right? How everybody has to watch the big soccer game. And why? We don't got better things to do? Yalla, you played soccer today. You had some fun. No problem. But do we all got to get around like, even in America, right? The Super Bowl. It's an event. We all have to do it. Why? It's just a day, right? It's just a game. Why are we all stopping our lives to be distracted by this event? He says, رياضيات والفن, fen is music, وما يدخل تحتها من عبث ومجون, right? Wasting times in the, not insanity, but close to that, right? The things that they do to distract them. وما تروج, and likewise what is spread from the different devices in this regard and other than it. كل هذا مما يلهي, all of these things distract the heart and they corrupt the person's inside and they weaken their iman. Because the cause of the إنما سببه شعور أهل المعاصي بآلام الذنوب. The reason why they go through and utilize all of these things is because the people who do sins, they feel the effect of their sins on them. And for that reason, you find that the doctors who deal with different personal diseases, right? The physicians who deal with certain personal diseases are abundant. Like when you talk about the physicians who deal with, we're talking about like therapists and things like that, right? Who deal with personal sickness, mental sickness, right? How depression affects the body and things like that. That's something that's so abundant nowadays, right? Why is it so abundant nowadays? Because the sins are so abundant. And so these people can't seem to get out of their own way. So they're constantly trying to find somebody to make it better for me. Right? When Allah tells you, how do you make your heart comfortable? Bi-dhikrillah. Allah bi-dhikrillahi tatma'innal qulub. And that's why I used to say to my family often, the heart will suffer in like a hole in the heart that can't be filled except with iman. No matter what you do, you won't be able to satisfy it. And so from the blessings of Allah, and like you should thank Allah for this, that Allah has put in your heart a desire for something that is unending, because you will never suffer from that hole. If you love knowledge, can you get it all? So you'll constantly be able to satisfy that desire that your heart has for it, as opposed to the one who his heart has been given to drink the taste of the dunya. He'll never be able to satisfy it, but he also won't get it. You see what I'm saying? While the person who has knowledge, he can quench his heart. And so like there's so many people that just, they don't know what they want to do with their life. And they don't know, and because they don't know, they can't enjoy their life. Like, what I'm gonna do? When a person who's involved in knowledge says, man, you give me a book, I'm cool. Right? We got a long bus ride from here to Chicago. Okay, well, just give me a book. I'll sit down and read on the way. It'll give me a chance to get caught up on some Quran, right? And our days become those things where it's like, man, I'm not doing enough of what I want to do because of how I'm doing all of these other things that I might have to. While their dunya, it's stressful because they have that hole that they're never satisfied, and there's nothing that will satisfy them. Anyway, he goes on in the footnotes to say, and for that reason, you find the physicians who deal with personal sickness are abundant, and the request for them is greater. And this is something that is apparent because of the stress and the weak iman of the people. He says how they commit suicide and inhiyar al-asabi wal hysteria, right? I don't know how to inhiyar al-asabi, fanaticism, or like hysteria, but al-inhiyar al-asabi, like when everybody's rushing as fanatics towards something, right? Wal khanfasa, I don't know how to translate that. Wal istihtar, kulluha, these are all types of sicknesses and social phenomenons and social sicknesses. All of them increase every day and get worse and worse in the ghawaya wal radhila, right? In the estrayedness and the wretchedness of the people. So anyway, like I said, it's just him re-emphasizing this point. No, but تفضل وبإيذاء. تفضل.
فبإزاء ذلك قوله في المؤمنين أولئك سيرحم الله فإن الله يجعل للمؤمنين
يعجل
يعجل للمؤمنين من الرحمة في قلوبهم وغيرها بما يجدونه من الحلاوة الإيمان ويذوقونه من طعمه وانشراح صدورهم للإسلام إلى غير ذلك من السرور بالإيمان والعلم والعمل الصالح بما لا يمكن وصفه.
نعم. طيب هذا شأن الكافر. This is the quality of the kafir. وَلَهُمْ عَذَابٌ مُقِيمٌ. Let's compare that to the mu'min. He says, وَبِإِزَاء. Right? بِإِزَاء in contrast or in comparison to that. On the other side of that, وَبِإِزَاءِ ذَلِكَ قَوْلُهُ فِي الْمُؤْمِنِينَ is the statement of Allah regarding the mu'mineen. أُولَٰئِكَ سَيَرْحَمُهُمُ اللَّهُ. It is these individuals who Allah will have mercy on. طيب. The kuffar, their adhab was where? Dunya wal akhirah. The mu'min, his rahmah is where? Dunya wal akhirah. He says, فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ يُعَجِّلُ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ مِنَ الرَّحْمَةِ فِي قُلُوبِهِمْ. Allah hastens for the believers a mercy for them in their hearts. And this is because of what they experience. What is this mercy that Allah places in the heart of the believer? It is that which they experience from the sweetness of faith and what they are able to taste from its flavor. Ibn Taymiyyah, he used to say, and you all know this statement, مَاذَا يَفْعَلُ بِي أَعْدَى. What can my enemies do with me? If they kick me out, it's a vacation, right? To the end of it. And he says that to Allah, there is a Jannah in this life. Whoever doesn't experience in this Jannah, he won't experience the Jannah in the next life. What's the Jannah in this life? Iman. It's the sweetness of Iman. When your life, ajaban li amr al-mu'min, how the believer, all his affairs are good. But that's only for who? Why? Why is it only for the mu'min? What quality does he have that makes it only for him? What quality does only the mu'min have? Iman. That's why it's a quality that only the mu'min has. And so his affairs are all good. Ajab, how amazing, and nobody else experiences that. So he says, Allah hastens for them a mercy. Allah hastens for them a mercy that he places in their heart and other than it. Right? Not only is this mercy in their heart, but this mercy is on their limbs, physically, in their environments, how other people are affected by it, how other people are affected by them. You ever had somebody that comes around you and it ruins your day just them being around you? You understand what I'm talking about? Somebody who comes around and it makes you feel bad when they come around. Right? And then there's other people who, like Ibn al-Qayyim, it was either Ibn al-Qayyim or Ibn Kathir, he said we used to, when we were sad, we would go and sit with Shaykh al-Islam just to feel better. Because the iman that he had would lift their spirits. Right? فَهَذَا نِعْمَةٌ عَظِيمَةٌ. Right? And all of that is because of what they find from the sweetness of iman and what they're able to taste of its flavor. وَانْشِرَاحِ صُدُورِهِمْ لِلْإِسْلَامِ. How their chests are spread wide receiving Islam. To other than that, from the things that bring them happiness because of faith, knowledge, and righteous actions, that it's impossible for us to describe it. Right? Ad-Daraqutni, if I'm not mistaken, it's Ad-Daraqutni. He said if the rulers knew what we were on, talking about the enjoyment of getting knowledge, if the rulers knew what we experienced because of this knowledge, they would fight to take it from us with their swords. It's free. Al-Julus fil Masjid. How much it cost you? There was no admission. There was no bouncer at the door. There was no line that you had to wait to get in. Getting to the front row, it's open. Praying with the people, reading the Quran. These are things that if people really knew how, and it's funny because the kuffar with all of their therapists and counselors, the end result, did we talk about that here last time? Or was I talking to Abu Muawiyah about that? How there's a concept, I can't even remember, I was talking to Abu Muawiyah about it. There's a concept that's very popular right now in therapy where they call it the third place.
Third place?
Yeah. Right. They encourage everybody to get a third place. Your first place is home. Your second place is work. And they say everybody needs a third place. And your third place should be a place that you can go to feel a sense of community. And it's better if your third place doesn't cost money. And it's just somewhere you can go and sit down and be around people with like-minded ideas as you and enjoy their company.
By the masjid.
It's just a masjid. We've been doing that since 1400 years ago. And you wonder why, like all of this money that they paid to go to school and become therapists, you could have just accepted Islam and been part of the masjid. And there's so many examples of this that all of their solutions, it's embedded in Islam. Like they used to have a statement where they would say, you need to take, just think about like how they talk about work, right? When you're at work. What's the mandation in work? Every 4 hours, you get a 15-minute break. Every 2 hours, you get a 15-minute break. Every 4 hours, you get a 30-minute break, right? And they talk about how people, they need to have time to like unwind, to stretch, to relax, to move from their position, from one position to another, right? What do Kafirs do for all of that? They do yoga, they do exercise, they go out on their break, they stretch, they do Tai Chi. We've been making salat this whole time. And it gets us out of that stress of the dunya. I've been working so long, I hear the adhan, it's over, right? It's no more, let me finish this paper, let me finish this document, let me meet this deadline. That's the adhan. Stop. It'll be there when you get back. Go make salat.
Yoga is from Kufr, right?
Huh?
Yoga came from Kufr.
I don't know. It's possible. It came from Indian, so I don't know what it is enough to talk about it.
Some soul transfer.
Yeah, potentially. I don't know enough about it to speak about it, but it wouldn't surprise me. I know it didn't come from the Muslims, so.
But Muslims practice it. You see a lot.
Yeah. So the point of it is that all these things that they're trying to figure out, it's embedded in Islam, the happiness. It's embedded in Islam, the happiness that we experience because of our faith, because of our knowledge, because of our righteous actions. Everything that they're trying to figure out, it's already part of Islam. Fadl.
وقال سبحانه في تمام خبر المنافقين.
غيره. Somebody else. Because now we're transitioning. So that was the end of the comparison. The ayat that dealt with the qualities of the kuffar and what they got because of those qualities. And the qualities of the mu'min and what they got because of those qualities. And so if you do what they did, you'll get what they got on both sides. Now he's going to transition into an example of that. Right? If you don't remember all of this, just take this example into consideration. And nobody can deny this example. And if you can't deny this example, then why would you want to follow them? If you know this example is the truth, why would you want to therefore follow them and copy them? What's the example? Go ahead.
Somebody else?
Somebody else.
وقال سبحانه في تمام خبر المنافقين كالذين من قبلكم كانوا أشد منكم قوة وأكثر أموالا وأولادا وهذه الكاف قد قيل إنها رفع
خبر
مبتدئ.
I'm sorry, رفع خبر لمبتدئ محذوف, or you could say رفع خبر مبتدئ مضاف إليه.
محذوف تقديره أنتم.
You said it right, تقديره.
تقديره أنتم كالذين من قبلكم وقيل إنها نصب يفعل. I'm sorry, إنها نصب بفعل محذوف تقديره فعلتم كالذين من قبلكم كما قال نمر بن تولب نعم كاليوم
كاليوم
كاليوم مطلوبا ولا طالبا. استمر. أي لم أرى كاليوم.
طيب. So this is going to get complex now. Remember, we said this tafsir of Ibn Taymiyyah is off the chain because he's going to go in so many places. So now he's getting into the linguistics of this ayah. كَالَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ كَانُوا أَشَدَّ مِنْكُمْ قُوَّةً وَأَكْثَرَ أَمْوَالًا وَأَوْلَادًا. Do you understand these words? Every single one of them? Okay, what does ka mean?
So
Like. طيب. Think about how this ayat is talking. What Allah is saying in this ayat. What does he say before it? That's why I said you got to be very familiar with this ayat, with these ayat. What does Allah say before كَالَّذِينَ? وعد الله المنافقين والمنافقات والكفار نار جهنم خالدين فيها هي حسبهم ولعنهم الله ولهم عذاب مقيم كالذين من قبلكم. Right? It changes the way because it's not, is it part of the sentence before it or is it separate? Is it implying something or is it direct?
continuation.
You see what I'm saying? Is it a continuation or is it a new thought? And so he's saying that Allah says, completing the information that he's giving us about the munafiqeen. So one opinion is that it's a continuation of thought. وَلَهُمْ عَذَابٌ مُقِيمٌ كَالَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ. Right? Like those who came before you. Who are you? The munafiqeen. كَالَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ. Who are you? The munafiqeen. And for them, look at that though. وَلَهُمْ. Wala. And for them is a عذاب مقيم كالذين من قبلكم.
For you.
Them, you. You got to pay attention to that. Allah did that on purpose. They call that iltifat. I'm switching it up. Why? So all of this is things that you got to start paying attention. Like, why is Allah? And for them is a severe punishment like those before you. What is Allah saying there? It doesn't seem like those who were before them, or for you is a severe punishment like those before you, or for them is a severe punishment like those before you.
Right now.
You see what I'm saying? What's going on? So Ibn Taymiyyah, he says that Allah subhanahu, he completes the information about the munafiqeen by saying, like those who were before you, they were more stronger or severer than you in their strength. They were greater in strength and more abundant in wealth and children. Which, like when you think about it, is crazy. Because you let somebody tell you nowadays who has more children.
Muslims?
No, nowadays. The people now or the people in the past?
What do you mean? Like,
who has more children? The people nowadays or the people in the past?
Oh, the past.
nowadays?
Huh?
I was saying the past.
Allah just told you.
I know, but people.
Yeah, it's the past.
Yeah.
But nowadays you would think people have more children
Right.
because there's more people on earth than there's ever been. But it's not because we have more children. It's because we live longer. Right? But when you think about it, we are all the children of the people of the past. Like how one person would populate a whole town. It was his town. Nowadays, I'm lucky if I populate my house.
Yeah.
So we have less children than they used to have. One person, Yaqub, 12 children. Dawood, Suleiman, how many children did they have, right? They had more children even though the earth wasn't as populated. While we have less children and the earth is more populated. So don't let somebody come in, like somebody would look at this, because these are things that people do. They'll say things like, well, the Quran, this is inaccurate. Allah says they were greater in number than children in wealth. Who had more money, them or us? Them. You think about the wealth that people like Qarun and just a general person had. If a person had a gold coin, they had real wealth. And that to me, like, it even touches on the fact that even what we perceive as wealth isn't wealth. You can have $100 million, $100,000, and that other person has 10 gold coins. Who has more wealth? Who has more wealth?
I mean, nowadays,
In reality, he does.
In reality, he does. Yeah, I mean, it just makes me think like that. Like, no, they were richer than us. So when people try to make arguments and they say, well, you know, times are different. People didn't have as much money back then. No, people had more money back then. People were stronger back then, right? Oh, we're so advanced. Man, they were stronger than back then. They were smarter back then. They had more wealth back then. They had more children back then. So all of the arguments that you're going to make about why you need to copy the kuffar. Well, I need to get money. I need to get establishment. I need to get married. They had all of those things back then. More than we have. You see what I'm saying? They were greater than you in strength, and they were more abundant in their wealth and their children. Ibn Taymiyyah, he says, هذه الكاف, right? This kaf, harf tashbih is what it's called, right? Kaf, yani al-kaf, like. It's comparing two things. So we already know where we're going with this, right? This is the book about comparison. Allah did the comparison, and now he's comparing something else. Kaf. It's been said that the kaf, what is the grammatical position of this kaf? Some of them say the grammatical position of this kaf is marfu', right? As if it has a dhamma on it. Why would it be marfu'? Because it's the khabar, it's the predicate of a subject that hasn't been mentioned. You all are like those that came before you. So you have to pay attention now, right? When we read it the first time, and to them is a severe punishment like those who came before you, this first opinion is saying what? No, it's not a continuation. It is a whole new statement. It's not you have a punishment, and I don't know if y'all with me. Why is that important? Let's read this sentence again. Hiya hasbuhum wa lahum adhabun muqim, like those who came before them. What's the comparison there?
They got punishment.
So it's only in what?
In one.
It's only in one thing. If I say, you got the curse of Allah, and you got this, and you got that, and you got a punishment like those who came before you, right? It's like I'm comparing the punishment to the punishment, which is limited, as opposed to me saying you are like those who came before you. That is what? That's much greater in comparison. You see what I'm saying? So he's saying one of the ways that this ayah could be understood is saying, you all are like those who came before you. So the mubtada would be antum, and the khabar would be ka alladhina min qablikum, right? You all are like those who came before you. So that's a different statement. So you got a punishment like those who came before you. That's one way to understand it. And you got a punishment that's going to be established. Y'all just like those who came before you. That's one way to understand it. That's if you say that the kaf is marfu', right? And so the expression would be explained by saying you all are like those who came before you. And it's also been said that it was nusiba, that the kaf is in the grammatical state of nasb, ayafata, as the object of a verb that has been implied. And the verb would be, you all did like those before you. You all acted like those before you. So this is now a third way we can look at it, right? وَلَهُمْ عَذَابٌ مُقِيمٌ كَالَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ, and they have a severe punishment like those who came before you. And they have a severe or an established punishment. You all are just like those who came before you. And for them as an established punishment, you all did just like those who came before you. You all acted like those who came before you. Right? So those are, so far, some ways that we can understand what this verse means. And a proof that the implied word could be a noun instead of a verb. A verb instead of a noun. Right? Somebody might say, well, how can you prove that it could be a feta? And how can you prove that it would be nasb instead of raf? My default is to think that it should be you all are like. How do I know that grammatically speaking, it could be a verb that's implied? He says, just look at the poem of Nimr ibn Tawlab. What did he say? Kal-yawm matluban wala taliba. Like today, sought after nor seeking. Right? This is a line of poetry. Like today, sought after or seeking. What is he saying? Like today. Obviously, we don't know because we don't know enough Arabic poetry. Continue. Oh, no, we read that. I.e., I haven't seen like today. I haven't seen any day like today. So what was implied before like today? A verb. I haven't seen the likes of today, being sought after nor seeking. Right? I've never seen a day like today where people are chasing or when somebody is chasing. Right?
How come there's no vowel after Ara?
Because it's on an aleph. Aleph maqsura, you can't show the vowel. You can't put any haraka on an aleph. Are you talking about why is there no aleph after the ra?
Yeah, like the ya.
There's no aleph after, they call it aleph maqsura,
Yeah.
is because it's majzoom. So a fi'l that is majzoom, you have to drop off either the last haraka if it has a healthy letter, or you drop off the last letter if it's a weak letter.
Okay.
Like, so when you make dua, for example, what do you say?
Allahumma.
You say ud'u.
Ud'u.
You don't say ud'u.
Oh, I got you.
Right? I say ud'u Allah. Right? Because I have to drop off the last letter. Because it's majzoom, or in the case of an amr, it would be mabni al-ikhtilaf. But yeah, that's why they dropped the aleph off, because it's majzoom by lam, or by lam.
Still let Muhammad read?
Fadl, you can keep reading. You can keep reading.
Oh, okay. وتشبيه.
So now that we understand all of the different ways we could understand kaf, what does kaf do?
It can be rough.
It compares. And what's the comparison? It could be you all are like those before you. You all acted like those before you. And it's subtle differences. Is it a big difference? But he's going to talk about it. So go ahead.
والتشبيه على هذين القولين في أعمال الذين من قبل. وقيل إن
طيب. So so this is the first opinion. It can be you all are like those before you. You did like those before you. Either one of those, however you imply it, what is the comparison being made? The comparison, he says, on both of these statements is in the actions. If I say you all are like those before you, how are you like them? In your actions. You're not like them in your name, your color, your complexion, your nationality. You're like them in your actions. And it's even more clear if I said the implication is you all did like those before you. It's even more clear that the comparison is in your actions. So Allah is criticizing antum, whoever the antum is, because we haven't got that far. Allah is criticizing antum because of what?
They're behaving like
You're behaving like
them.
So Allah is criticizing you for behaving like them. Right? Because you did action. And how is Allah saying you're behaving like them?
Okay.
You did their actions. Did it talk about your belief?
Everything.
I'm saying, did it specify your belief? It talked about your
Action.
So it is enough to behave like them in their actions, even if it's not belief. Right? Even if it's not accompanied by belief. You acted like them. Allah criticized you, whoever you is, for acting like them who were before you, even though they had qualities that you might want. They had wealth. They had abundance. They had strength. And you all acted like them, but Allah criticized you for acting like them, even if there was no belief involved in it. The criticism is in the comparison of the action. That's one way. Go ahead.
إن تشبيه
وقيل إن التشبيه
وقيل إن تشبيه إن تشبيه
إن التشبيه
في العذاب.
طيب. That's what we already talked about. وَلَهُمْ عَذَابٌ مُقِيمٌ كَالَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ. So the comparison there is in what? The comparison is in what? the adab, tashbihun fil adab. And they and for them, who is the them? The kuffar, the munafiqeen, right? وعد الله المنافقين والمنافقات والكفار نار جهنم هي حسبهم ولعنهم, right? So for them, i.e. the munafiqeen, is a established punishment كَالَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ, like those before you. Their punishment is like the punishment of those before you, whoever you is. So the first possible understanding is the comparison is in what? The actions. The second possible understanding is that the comparison is in what? The punishment, which is, why do they get the punishment? Because of their actions. So one is in the comparison in cause, and the other way you can look at it is comparison in effect. If you act like them, you get like them, right? And this ayat is showing you both sides of it. You all are like them. You all get a punishment like them. These are two different ways we can understand it. Is it contradictory? Do they contradict each other? They support each other. This is what we call ikhtilaf at-tanawwu', right? Varied tafsir. They're both saying the same thing, just different ways. You all acted like them, and the second comparison is you all get punished like them. That's the second way to understand this ayah. Fadl. Then it's been said, طيب, do you know what an amil is in grammar? An amil is the thing that causes the grammar. For example, if I say ضرب عبد الحكيم me Muhammad, why is abdu? Because it's the fa'il. The fa'il is called an amil. It's the reason it is abdu. Why is it al-hakimi? Mudaf ilay. That idafa is the amil. It's the reason why it's hakimi. Why is it Muhammad mansub? Why is it mansub?
Because of the fi'l.
Maf'ulun bihi. And that fi'l or that maf'ulun bihi is the amil. It's the thing that made it mansub, right? So now that we know the kaf, we said it could be raf or it could be nasb, right? And it could be a comparison in the action, or it can be a comparison in the punishment. What would the grammar be if it was a comparison in the punishment? وَلَهُمْ عَذَابٌ مُقِيمٌ كَالَّذِينَ. What would it be there? What would the grammar be there? What would the grammar of ka be? They have adhabun muqim. Adhabun muqim would be the mubtada. Right? Adhab would be the mubtada. Muqim would be a sifa. The khabar would be implied, right? And then lahum would be a jaru majroor muta'alliq with the implied khabar. Or if some people would say the shibhu jumla is the khabar. And then kalladhina would be a description of what? Of the adhab, of the mubtada. It would be a description of the mubtada, right? So now that we understand the grammatic, so if it was a description, it would be marfu. I mean, lahum adhabun muqim. It would be marfu also. So we see the grammar, it's either going to be marfu as a khabar, or marfu as a sifa, or mansub as a maf'ulun bihi. Right? All of this is grammar. Like, what made it this way? What made it marfu? What made it mansub? Go ahead. ثم قيل.
You mean A?
It says, no, it says, and then it says, you read it already. Yeah. And then it's been said that the impact, the impactful, the grammatical cause is something that is implied. Meaning, the word that impacts the kaf is hidden. It's not directly stated. That's one opinion. The word that is impacting the kaf is not actually mentioned. It's implied. What would it be?
Continue.
Yeah.
A la'nahum وعذبهم كما لعن الذين من قبلكم.
So the implication is that all of this is grammar, and like if you're not a grammar buff, it's the meaning. You're not lost in the meaning, but you're lost in how he got to this meaning. The implication would be a whole new sentence. وَلَهُمْ عَذَابٌ عَقِيمٌ لَعْنَهُمُ اللَّهُ وَعَذَّبَهُمُ اللَّهُ كَالَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ. Right? So it's as if you're saying one way to understand it is that there's a whole new. So the first aspect, there was an implied mubtada, antum. The second understanding is that there was an implied fi'l, fa'altum. And both of those meanings have the meaning of the comparison is in the action. We're done with that. The second meaning is the comparison is in the punishment. Okay? How do we structure this sentence? وَلَهُمْ عَذَابٌ أَلِيمٌ لَعْنَهُمُ اللَّهُ كَالَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ وَعَذَّبَهُمُ اللَّهُ كَالَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ. So it's as if it's a whole new sentence. It's not directly connected. There's an implication that there are words there that are starting a new sentence.
So this would be a fi'liya sentence, right?
That would be a jumlatun fi'liya. لَعْنَهُمُ اللَّهُ كَالَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ. So لَعْنَهُم فِعْل ماضي. Allah, هم مفعول به. Allah fa'il. كَالَّذِينَ, it would be لَعْنَهُمُ اللَّهُ منسوب على الإطلاق, right? مفعول مطلق. لعنهم الله. How did, or how? How did Allah curse them?
How?
Like the way he cursed those before them.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? How did Allah punish them?
Like those before.
Right? Their punishment was like those before them. You see what I'm saying? So when that's it, huh?
Mithlu what? You said the what did you call it?
Hal.
Hal.
Right? All right. ضربتك كضرب عبد. I beat you the way a slave is beaten. How did I beat you? How a slave is beaten. You see what I'm saying? So that's telling about how I did the action. They call it the hal. So all of this is just grammar. So he says one way to imply it, or one way to understand it, is that the sentence is implied. And then he says,
Next page. وقيل وهو أجود بل العامل ما تقدم.
now, you can also say, if we're taking the second position, what's the second tafsir? The comparison is in
عذاب.
the adhab, the results. You can say that there's an implied sentence, but you can also say, and this one is better,
Generous.
right? Ajwad, better,
Yeah.
right?
عجيب.
This one is better. This tafsir, if you're gonna say this tafsir that the comparison is in the result, you could say that there's a sentence implied, la'anahum wa adabahum, or you could say, and this opinion is better, that the grammatical impact comes from the words that were said earlier. What words did Allah say earlier? وعد الله المنافقين والمنافقات والكفار نار جهنم هي حسبهم ولعنهم ولهم عذاب مقيم. Right? They're saying that those words, it's all one sentence. So you don't have to put a new sentence in the middle of it. It's as if it's all one sentence. وَلَهُمْ عَذَابٌ مُقِيمٌ كَالَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ. Right? Go ahead.
أي وعد الله المنافقين كوعد الذين من قبلكم ولعنهم كلعن الذين من قبلكم ولهم عذاب مقيم كالذين من قبلكم.
Okay. So here, this is where it starts to get interesting. And this stuff, it's grammatical, but like when you understand these things, it changes the way you think about how Allah is talking in the Quran and the impact of it. If you're saying it's all one sentence, you're saying the grammatical impact is coming from the words early. So kaf, think about the words as like, subhanAllah. Like imagine the word, if I hit you, you feel it, right? And if I hit you and he hits you, you feel it what? You feel it more. And if all three of us hit you, And each one of these hits is different. You got Abdul Hakim hit, Amir's hit, Muhammad's hit. They all feel different. They all hit different. But you experience all three of them. Imagine the word is representative of what the word represents. Imagine the word, imagine your name. If I say Darabtu wa Amiru wa Muhammadu Fadla. Imagine your name is representative of you. And the words I use hit your name the same way all three of us hit you. The impact that you get grammatically from that sentence is more effective. You see what I'm saying? Than me saying Abdul Hakim hit Fadl. And Amir hit Fadl. And Muhammad hit Fadl. You see what I'm saying? I made them separate, so how many hits did you take? One at a time. And maybe that's tolerable. But if I say Abdul Hakim wa Amir wa Muhammad hit Fadl, how many hits did you take?
3 hits.
And that's more impactful. Like the way the word structure works makes you think like, man, that word is getting hit 3 times till the grammar was caught. Like the thing that made the word say the thing that made the word say ooh, what was it? If you imply the sentence, then you had to, if I had to imply something, what does that do? That weakens the effect. But if it's direct, then that strengthens the effect. And not only if it's direct, it's stronger, but what if it's direct in multiple? Then it's even stronger. And so imagine the word like that. He's saying, so what is affecting the calf? What is the calf suffering from? What impacted the calf? لعنهم كلعن الذين من قبلكم ولهم عذاب مقيم كعذاب مقيم للذين من قبلكم ووعدهم كوعد الذين من قبلهم. It's as if the calf is holding all of those meanings inside of it, one word. And so the impact of that is more effective than if I had to spell it all out. Like, I don't know if you get it, but I mean, to me, it's like, man, that's... And when you think about the ayat in that fashion, it's like Allah said all of that. Like Allah chose to say, like, don't just take it as on that surface level of it's easy, it's the same. No, like it's SubhanAllah. He says, so it can also be said, and it's more, and it's better, that the impact, the grammatical impact is everything that came before it. I.e., Allah has promised the munafiqeen the same way He promised those before you. And He has cursed the munafiqeen the same way He cursed those who came before you. And He will punish the munafiqeen with an established torment just like those who came before you. Right? And so all of that is one way to understand this ayah. Go ahead. And all of that is saying that the calf is marfu'. Or you can say mahalluha. I'm sorry, and it shouldn't be O, it should be A. I'm looking at the footnote. It should be A mahalluha nasb. All of that is saying that the calf is mansub. Like we said, it should be a hal. It says O, but O doesn't make sense there. Right. It should be A mahalluha nasbun. Allah punished them. How did He punish them? Like those who before you. Allah cursed them. How did He curse them? And so it should be mahalluha nasb. Or ويجوز
أن يكون رفعا أي عذاب كعذاب الذين من قبلكم.
And so it's possible that it could also be marfu', like you could say عذاب كالذين من قبلهم. And so the word would be marfu' as a sifa. You see what I'm saying? All of these different, and these things make a difference, right? It's not big, but it's subtle. How did Allah do it? That's talking about whose action?
Allah's.
You get a punishment like theirs. That's talking about what?
Your action.
Not yours.
Theirs.
Theirs. Their punishment. So the reference, the emphasis is a little bit different. Like in English, if I say, I went to the store, what am I talking about? What do I care about? Myself. If I say, I went to the store, what do I care about? The store. You didn't hear the emphasis, right? If I say, so like the way you say things changes, it's the same words, but it changes the reference point. So, is Allah making you think about what He did to them? Is Allah making you think about what they got? Is Allah making you think about what they did? You see what I'm saying? All of these changes the way you perceive the ayah. So if you're using this ayah and you're contemplating over it and thinking about it, man, look at how Allah treated them. Look at what Allah did to them. La'anahum. How did Allah curse them? Okay, now look at how they got the curse, what they received, what was the curse they received. So you can look at it, the greatness of Allah, how great is Allah and how He does things. You can look at it, what the result of that was, what they got. You can also look at why they got what they got. You see what I'm saying? All of these are just different ways of looking at the ayah. Now,
Is this, can I say like this? وحقيقة الأمر.
وحقيقة الأمر.
وحقيقة الأمر على هذا القول أن الكاف تناولها عاملان ناصبان أو ناصب ورافع من جنس قولهم أكرمت وأكرمني زيد.
طيب. Grammatically speaking, now we already talked about this, so it should be clear now. The way the word is impacted, you got to visualize the word as a real thing, right? And see how it was impacted. What impacted the calf? How many words impacted the calf? وعد الله المنافقين والمنافقات والكفار نار جهنم هي حسبهم ولعنهم ولهم عذاب عليم كالذين من قبلكم. How many words affected the calf?
All of them.
So you say 3 words affected the calf, right? Not just 2. Wa'ad, la'ana, wa'adab. All right, so not just 1 word affected the calf, all 3 words affected the calf. And okay, let's take the word wa'ada out. And now we got la'an and adab. We could say both of these words affected the calf at the same time. 2 things hit the calf at once. And both of those words made the calf fatah. La'anahum kala'an. Wa'adhabahum ka'adhab. Right? Both of them hit the calf at the same time. So I don't have to imply anything. And I say both of those words hit the calf equally at the same time. Or I can say, well, one of those words was actually marfu'. La'anahum kala'nahum. Walahum adhabun ka'adhabihim. Right? One is marfu', ka'adhabihim. It would be marfu'. So now the word has 2 grammatical positions at once. The word is marfu' and mansub at the same time. Can that be? Can a word be marfu' and mansub at the same time? It's like the example of somebody saying, akramtu wa akramani Zayd. I was nice to, and he was nice to me, Zayd. What grammatical case is Zayd in? I was nice to, and Zayd was nice to me, Zayd. You see what I'm saying? In English, it doesn't make sense. But in Arabic, I was nice to, and he was nice to me, Zayd. What is the grammatical state of Zayd? That's it?
Both.
It's both. I was nice to Zayd, and Zayd was nice to me. But I just said, akramtu wa akramani Zayd. What grammatical state is Zayd in? Raf and nasb at the same time. And that is like linguistically off the chain. You see what I'm saying? Like linguistically, this one word is serving 2 things at one time. right? Like that's how Allah is talking here, right?
Just so we can get the meaning, I was generous, and to me was generous Zayd.
Yes.
Like that.
I was nice too. I was akram, right? I treated honorably, and he treated me honorably, Zayd.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
And the reason why it's not in nasb here, like written, but it still carries the nasb.
It carries the nasb because kaf is a harf. And so huruf can't carry grammar. Huruf can only be in the place of a word that can carry grammar. But a harf can't carry grammar. You can't see the sign. The sign is implied. Or it's in mahal. It's not even implied. It's fi mahal. The point is that all of that to say is that Allah's statement, like imagine a word doing two things at once at the same time. Like, do you understand that? Like the word Allah is saying say two things at once right now.
Things at once.
Say two things at once right now.
Are you right? Or are you going? Nah, you can't.
And it's like Allah is saying two things at once. وَلَهُمْ عَذَابٌ مُقِيمٌ لَعَنَهُمْ وَعَذَّبَهُمْ كَالَّذِينَ. It's like Allah is saying two things at once. How you know Allah? Because the grammar of this word, it's impacted equally at the same time by both of these words. So it says this word kaf is doing two things at one time. And if you understand Arabic, you see how it's doing it at the same time. So when you say kaf, it's as if you're saying both of those things at the same time. لَعْنَهُمْ وَعَذَّبَهُمْ كَالَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ. All of that is implied and included, and not even implied, directly stated by this statement. Keep going. وَالنَّحْوِيُّونَ
لهم فيما إذا لم يختلف العامل كقولك أكرمت وأعطيت زيدا قولان.
Now, so remember we said the kaf, it can be affected by the two words that are both nasb. لعنهم وعذبهم كالذين من قبلهم. Or it can be one of the words is nasb, لعنهم, and the other one is raf, لهم عذاب كالذين من قبلهم. So the word has two opinions. It could be doubly impacted by two words that have the same action, the same grammatical impact, or it can be doubly impacted by two words that have different grammatical impact. And the people of Arabic grammar, an-Nahwiyun, they have a disagreement. Can one word be impacted by two things at once? And grammar, and all of this stuff will come, you might never use this stuff again, but you might, right? Because all of this stuff has to do with like usul al-fiqh also. I'll give you a side benefit real quick. Who is Allah talking to in the Quran? When Allah says you and commands a command, who is Allah talking to? Huh? Everyone?
It depends what the ayah begins with.
يا أيها الذين آمنوا يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام. Who is Allah talking to? The Muslims? Those, huh? Mu'mineen? طيب. Why wasn't he just talking to the ones that were there? They are the ones who heard when Allah said it to the angel Jibril, who said it to the Prophet Muhammad. When the Prophet Muhammad was saying, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu, who was he talking to? Was he talking to you? You weren't even alive yet. So some scholars say, and this is similar but different. Some scholars say Allah wasn't talking to you. Allah was talking to the Sahaba. And you are addressed by comparison. Do you have anything that excludes you from that verse? Are you a human? Do you have iman? Are you religiously responsible? Those are the things that make the Sahaba who are addressed by that ayat addressed. And so you enter in comparison. While others say, no, the ayat is directly talking to you. Right? And what's the difference? What difference does it make?
More impactful.
More impactful. And then qiyas. Can you do qiyas on qiyas? No. But can you do qiyas on a direct statement? Yes. And so like different rules will come from it. And so like here, the scholars of grammar disagree. Can one word be impacted by two impactors if they both have the same impact? Right? An example would be like the statement, I gave and I honored Zaid. What's the impact that both of these words make on Zaid? They both make him an object. I gave Zaid. I honored Zaid. Both of these words, they both give the same impact. Can Zaid be directly impacted, the word Zaid, can it be directly impacted by both of them? Or do I have to imply I gave Zaid and honored Zaid? So therefore, the word Zaid I see is only impacted by one of them. Can the word Zaid be impacted by both directly, or do I have to imply another Zaid? And if I have to imply another Zaid, which Zaid am I implying, the first one or the second one? And if I'm talking, which statement is stronger, the one I said directly or the one I implied? You understand the difference? Like if I say, I saw and I hit Amr. Can I saw and I hit both directly impact the word Amr, which means I did those things equally, right? Just as much as I saw him is just as much as I hit him.
Additional information.
Right? It's just, I'm saying, and when I say this sentence, I saw and I hit Amr. Can Amr be the object of my sight just as much as he is the object of my hitting? And so they are both equal 100%. I saw him 100% and I want all of that meaning, and I hit him 100% and I want all of that meaning. Or do I have to imply another Amr? Do I have to apply another word, Amr? And so I say, I saw Amr and I hit Amr. And if I had to imply one of them, which one do I imply? Do I imply the first one? Or do I imply the second one? Why is it important? Because the one that is implied is less strong, or is not as strong as the one I said directly. Why? Because the one I said directly I chose to say, while the other one I didn't choose to say. So it has a little bit less impact, right? If I say I hit Amr, I saw Amr, I hit Amr, I said them both directly, right? But if I say I saw and hit Amr, then did I say them both directly? Or am I implying one? And if I'm implying one, which one am I implying? If I say I saw Amr and hit imply Amr, then that means the sight was the more important thing. Whereas if I say I saw imply Amr and hit Amr, the more important thing was hit Amr. But if I say the word can impact them both directly, they are both just as important. You see what I'm saying?
So that's the view. That's the better.
That's what scholars disagree. Ibn Taymiyyah is saying that's the better way to say it, but the grammaticians, they disagree. Can one word be affected by two things at the same time? Basically, can two things exist in one place at the same time? Can two things exist in one place at the same time? Huh? Grammatically speaking, I don't see why not. Why not? I can understand, but can you understand both of them at the same time? Can you appreciate both of them at the same time in real time, or does your mind need to process one and then the other?
I appreciate it.
Right? Are they both as impactful to you at the same time, or does your mind need to look at one and then look at the next one? You see what I'm saying? If I can, so then two things can exist at the same time. My mind is capable of doing that. And that is more impactful than me having to take a breath, think about it, apply it, take a breath, think about, imply it. It hits me right away. You see what I'm saying? So it's more impactful. He says, so the people of grammar, they disagree about if a word can be impacted by two things that have the same effect. Like the statement, he honored or I honored and gave Zayd. They have two statements. The first of them,
أحدهما وهو قول
Sibawayh. People of grammar, they pronounce these words way. People of hadith, they pronounce these words uya. Right? And so Sibawayh is a person of grammar. I would pronounce his name the way he would want his name pronounced. Sibawayh. If it was a person of hadith, I would pronounce his name the way the people of hadith pronounce it. Ishaq ibn Rahuya. Right? Can I say Ishaq ibn Rahawayh? They say it like this, but Ishaq is a person of hadith. I'm going to say Ishaq ibn Rahuya. Right? Sibawayh, I'm a person, I hope to be a person of hadith. So I would say Sibuya. But since Sibawayh is a person of grammar, I'm going to give him his name the way he wants it. Sibawayh. You see what I'm saying?
وهو قول سيبويه وأصحابه أن العامل في الاسم هو أحدهما وأن الآخر حذف حذف معموله.
You said it right, معموله.
نعم لأنه لا يرى
اجتماع نعم
عاملين على معمول واحد.
Now, so you have a word that is an object, or it is impacted, grammatically speaking, by two words at the same time. Can that happen or not? Can two things exist in one place at the same time? Sibawayh and those who agree with him, and Sibawayh who are Imam al-Kufiyin, right? He says, no. One word can't be impacted by two words at the same time. You have to imply something else. Because two things can't exist at the same place at the same time. Right? And so they say you have to imply another object. Right? So that's their opinion. That's what he's saying. The first of them is the statement of Sibawayh and his companions that the impactor word in the noun, i.e. the kaf here, is the example that we're using. But generally speaking, the impactor word in any given noun is only one of the impactors. La'nahum walahum adhabun muqim. It can only be one of them. And the other one, the object of it, or the impacted word that it impacts, it is only one of them. Because they hold the view that you cannot have two amil, you cannot have two grammatically impactful words affecting one object. You can't have two grammatically impactful words affecting one word. So it's as if the sentence that we had, akramtu wa a'taytu Zaydan Zaydan. That's what you would have to say. That's what you're implying. Akramtu wa a'taytu Zaydan Zaydan.
Would that make sense?
It makes sense. Akramtu wa a'taytu Zaydan Zaydan.
Zaydan, Zaydan,
Yeah.
Zaydun, Zaydan.
Zaydan Zaydan. Because a'taytu Zaydan wa akramtu Zaydan. A'taytu wa akramtu Zaydan Zaydan. That's the implication of what you're actually saying, because they say you can't, one Zayd can't receive two words. You got to say akramtu Zayd, cool. Or a'taytu Zayd, cool. But you can't say akramtu wa a'taytu Zayd. We need another Zayd there, so it can be akramtu wa a'taytu Zaydan. Zaydan. Right? That's the first opinion. Go ahead.
والثاني قول الفراء
الفراء.
قول الفراء وغيره من الكوفيين.
So Sibawayh is from the people of Basra.
أن الفاعلين عملا في هذا الاسم وهو يرى أن العاملين يعملان في المعمول الواحد.
Now, Al-Farra is a famous scholar of grammar. If I'm not mistaken, he's from the students of Sibawayh. Right? And this goes back to that ikhtilaf between the two madaris of the people. You have the madrasa of the people of Kufa and the madrasa of the people of Basra. There's two madhabs in grammar, just like there's madhabs in Islamic law, right? And they always did disagree with each other, right? Sometimes the disagreement is important, sometimes it's not. Uthaymeen rahimahullah, his opinion in the disagreement, and then there's a third school, the people of Baghdad. They ended up with a school of thought. Uthaymeen rahimahullah has a good qaida in the grammatical disagreement, whichever one is easier. Whichever one is easier, that's the right answer. Because it's not what? It's not Quran. It's not Sunnah. So whichever one is easier, do that one. That's the right answer, right? But they disagree. Like we say, sometimes the disagreement has a point, and sometimes it doesn't. Like, is it called Aleph and Lam or L? Do you call it L or Aleph and Lam?
Well, if I spell it.
If you're talking about Aleph and Lam, do you say L or do you say Aleph and Lam?
Aleph and Lam.
That's a different method. Some people say, like, I would say the meaning of L is al-jins, while you would say the meaning of Aleph and Lam is jins.
I thought you separated them. I didn't know in the sense.
Yeah, it's a method, right? That's a grammar. Do you call it khaft or do you call it jar? And they have a reason. Why do they call it khaft? Because it comes from the lower part of the mouth and it's below the letter, the kasra. That's why they call it khaf, because it's low. Why do they call it jar? Because they feel that the other word is pulling it. So it's harf jar, right? Or it's khaf. Why do they call it kasr? Because you got to break your mouth when you say E. Your mouth goes and breaks. As opposed to ah or oo, right? Dhamma, because your mouth goes in. Nasb, because your mouth goes open. Does it matter what you call it? But those are disagreements. And then sometimes their disagreement has a point. Can one word be affected by two impactors? Al-Farrah, he says, and other than him from the people of Kufa, they say yes. Two verbs can directly impact one noun. And they hold the view that the two impactors can both act at the same time in one place. And the difference, like we say, is just emphasis and importance. These two things are just as important. So now when I'm making a position, for example, let's sum it all up. What is the ayah comparing?
The punishment.
The punishment or
Or action.
the action? Which one's more important?
Actions, maybe, because then you don't get the punishment.
But if you did the actions, you get the punishment.
Right.
And if you got the punishment, you did the act. Which one is more important? I can say they're both just as important. You see what I'm saying? I can say they're equal. Or I can say which one is worse, the la'na or the punishment?
The Larna good.
Which one is a worse
Punishment
thing,
is
the
not-
punishment or the la'na?
They're both bad.
Which one is worse?
The Larna is the punishment.
No, it's not. Allah mentioned two different things. The la'na is not the punishment. The la'na is the la'na, the punishment is the punishment. Which one is worse?
Worse, maybe the punishment.
Why I picked that up?
Because it hurts.
You think Allah's not loving you and cursing you won't hurt? You think Allah kicking you out of his mercy you won't experience that? A person can get the punishment and then get Allah's mercy afterwards.
The Larna leads to punishment. Maybe if you don't repent.
Right.
Oh.
The point is that according to the second position, you can say, nah, they both as bad. Because both words were directly said. What is Allah talking about more? The punishment or the la'na? Both. Well, how do you know? He only said one calf because both of them can impact the calf at the same time. You see what I'm saying? Like, anyway, fumble. Let's finish up.
وعلى هذا اختلافهم في نحو قوله عن اليمين وعن الشمال قعيد.
Allahu Akbar. You never even asked yourself about that ayah.
Yeah, what's up with that?
You look at, I know me, the first time I looked at it, I was like, oh, snap.
Sitting
Oh, snap.
left and right.
And al-yamini وعن الشمال قعيد. How many angels are there?
Like,
This is the ayah. إذ يتلقى المتلقيان.
It's two, right?
Yeah, it's two.
yeah,
Where are they at?
on the left and on the right and the left.
Sitting
On the right and on the left. What are they doing?
right.
Sitting.
How many words for sitters are there?
Ah,
It's just one word for sitter. How can that one sitter be on the right and on the left?
Right.
But obviously, the right and the left are applying to how many sitters?
Two.
Grammatically, they're affecting it at the same time. So there's a sitter on the right and a sitter on the left. Right? Or is the meaning of this ayat, أَنَ الْيَمِينِ قَعِيدٌ وَأَنَ الشِّمَالِ قَعِيدٌ? It could be.
Could be.
Sibawayh says no, that's what this ayat means. أَنَ الْيَمِينِ قَعِيدٌ وَأَنَ الشِّمَالِ قَعِيدٌ. Hafara say, la, la, la. أَنَ الْيَمِينِ وَأَنَ الشِّمَالِ قَعِيدٌ. They're both.
But this emphasizes the qareed when you think about it.
Huh? Yeah, this is showing that both of them are impacted by, this word qa'id is impacted by the right and the left. Right? And so it's giving you a greater meaning of the word qa'id. If somebody who didn't understand grammar, didn't understand Arabic says, how many angels are there? And they look at this word and say qa'id is a what kind of word? It's a mufrad. It's a singular word. How many sitters are there?
Two.
But Allah said one is on the right, one is on the left. This is a contradiction in the Quran. How could there be two sitters where there's a singular word?
Like maybe they're saying it should be qa'idan.
Yeah. Right? And how could, or not even that, because you say on the right and on the left qa'idan, that would mean there's, how could there be two of them? How could both of that word would still be affected by one of them? You see what I'm saying? Is it on the right qa'idan or on the left qa'idan?
I see.
But if you understand grammar, you're like, no, you just don't understand Arabic. In Arabic, this word qa'id is doubly impacted by an al-yamin wa an al-shimal qa'id. Right?
Puts more emphasis that
It's just showing you that this word, because the word qa'id is what's affecting an shimal and an yamin. This one word is impacting both of these positions at the same time. It's like this word is doing double duty. Right? And so it's more articulate. When you're talking, do I want to say all these words? Allah got all of that message to you in fewer words than necessary. Allah could have said, "Ana al-yamini qa'id wa ana al-shimali qa'id," but Allah didn't. He said, "Ana al-yamini wa ana al-shimali qa'id." He got you that same meaning with less words. And when I say it's direct, that's even greater than saying one of them was implied. Because if I say it's direct, I say Allah spelled it out for you, as opposed to, well, you had to think about it to understand it. No, it's direct. You understand the point? Anyway, keep going. وأمثاله Muhammad, go ahead.
فعل القول الأولين يكون التقدير وعد الله المنافقين النار كوعد الذين من قبلكم ولهم عذاب مقيم كالذين من قبلكم أو كعذاب الذين من قبلكم ثم حذف اثنان من هذه المعمولات لدلالة الآخر عليهما وهم يستحسنون حذف الأوليين.
أوليين. You said it right. الأوليين. الأولين. الأولين. آسف. الأولين. طيب. This is just explaining what we've already talked about. So, according to the first opinion, the opinion of Sibawayh, how would you have to say this ayat is really being said? Right? You're saying Allah didn't say a lot of stuff, but you have to say it. So they're saying, okay, the way the ayat should really be understood is Allah has promised the munafiqeen the fire like he promised it to those before you. And they have a severe punishment like those who came before you, or a punishment like those before you. And you also have to remember, Ibn Taymiyyah is talking, so he forgot one. La'nahu. Right? Just like last time, he only mentioned two, he forgot one. It's okay. He says, and then hudifa ithnani. How do I know I'm saying he forgot one? Because he's saying you have to imply two of them and leave the other one. So we know that there's three things. Wa'ada, la'ana, adhab. He's saying, and then you have to imply, and that's something that you have to pay attention to. Because like if you're reading and you're not thinking, you're like, well, where's the third one? Where's the third one? He didn't mention the third one. Because he only mentioned what? Two. And in the last paragraph, he mentioned two, but he mentioned two different ones. You see what I'm saying? It's okay when you're reading, think about it like a person talking to you. His tongue slipped, right? He said so, and then they say that you have to remove two of them. Wa'ada, la'na, adab. You have to remove two of them and say the third one proves the other two. Okay? Now that we got that, which two do we remove? They say it's better to remove the first two. So it's as if Allah says, وَعَدَ اللَّهُ الْمُنَافِقِينَ وَالْمُنَافِقَاتِ وَالْكُفَّارِ كَالَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُم. Imply that. نَارَ جَهَنَّمِ هِيَ حَسْبُهُمْ وَلَعْنَهُمْ كَالَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ. Imply that. وَلَهُمْ عَذَابٌ مُقِيمٌ كَالَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُم. You said that directly. Why did we imply the first two? Because the last one proved the first two. But that's an extra what? That's an extra step. An extra step waters down the meaning. And also, can you be sure that's what Allah wanted if you're saying it's implied? You see what I'm saying? You're assuming and you're basing it on evidence, but it's not as impactful. That's the first opinion. The second opinion, تفضل.
وعلى القول الثاني يمكن أن يقال الكاف المذكورة بعينها هي المتعلقة بقوله وعد وبقوله ولعن وبقوله ولهم عذاب مقيم لأن الكاف لا يظهر لأن الكاف لا يظهر فيها إعراب وهذا على القول بأن عمل الثلاثة نصب ظاهر.
Now, on the second opinion, the opinion of Al-Farra, it's possible that you say the kaf that is mentioned in this ayah, كَالَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ, it is directly connected to the words wa'ada, as well as the statement wala'ana, as well as the statement وَلَهُمْ عَذَابٌ مُقِيمٌ. Because the kaf, and how can we say that it's directly connected to all of them? Another benefit is that the kaf doesn't show grammar. So it's even easier to say that it's directly impacted because I don't have to show different harakat or anything like that. I just say, no, it's there. They're all there. Just, you don't see them? The kaf, it got 3 fathahs on it. That's basically what he's saying. The kaf got 3 fathahs on top of it, right? And that's why they say math, Arabic is like math, right? We were doing a math problem last night. And there's a sign in math, and I just couldn't get it. It was making me annoyed. You ever seen a 3-line equal sign?
I've seen this one.
Yeah, that's opposite. A 3-line equal sign. 1, 2, 3. What does it mean? And I was getting so annoyed. Like, تفضل أذن. A 3-line equal sign. It means that this number equals that number perfectly. And I was like, well, that's the 2-line equal sign too.
Yeah.
But I get it because it's like one more line means it's even more equal. So like 2 plus 2 equals 4, but it isn't 4. While 4, 3-line equals 4. Right? Hold on, like I didn't come. I'm like, where the Tawheed at, man? I ain't got time for all this math and grammar.
أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر
الله أكبر الله أكبر.
لا إله إلا الله
لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له. So the point of it is that the same way in math, you had that 3-line equal sign, and it means more. It's the same way like here. It's as if he's saying this word calf has 3 fathahs on it, all at the same time. And since I don't actually have to write a fathah, it's easy, right? So it's more emphasized, more impactful. Now, he says, لأن الكاف لا يظهر فيه إعراب أو فيها إعراب. You can't show any i'rab on the kaf, and so it's as if I put all 3 fathahs there, no problem. And this is on the opinion that the action of all 3 of those words is what? Nasb. Wa'adahum, it makes the kaf mansub. La'nahum, it makes the kaf mansub. Walahum adhab. If you say that makes the kaf mansub, then all 3 of them make the kaf mansub. But there's a problem. What if we said that the walahum adhabun muqim makes the kaf marfu'? With me? Yeah. If all 3 of them make the kaf marfu', I'm not all 3. If the last one makes the kaf marfu', then now you have to go to a whole nother thing. Well, hold on. Now I got 2 fathahs in a dhamma. And can a word, we know a word can be hit by 2 people at the same time, but can the word do 2 different things at one time? What does he say?
وإذا قيل إن الثالث يعمل الرفع فوجهه أن العمل واحد في اللفظ إذ تعلق معنوي
إذ تعلق معنوي لا لفظي.
إذا التعلق معنوي لا لفظي.
He says, and if it said that the third one, it actually impacts raf. وَلَهُمْ عَذَابٌ مُقِيمٌ. What does that do to the kaf? It makes it marfu'. Then we say, then here, the way we would explain it, for wajhuhu, the way we would go about explaining it is that the impact of one of them is in the word. Right? The impact is actually on the physical word, what you actually say. Right? So you can say the fatha is verbal or the dhamma is verbal. And the other one is a connection of meaning, not words. So the connection is, it's almost the same thing now. It's like he just all of this for nothing. But it's like, if we say that there are 2 different impacts, fatha and dhamma, can you say fatha and dhamma at the same time? You can't say them at the same time. And so we'll say that one of them is what you said, and the other one is just, it's connected to the word, but you don't say it. Right? That's basically what he's saying. So in the first one, you got 3 fathahs that you said them all at the same time. Can you say 3 fathahs at the same time? I just said 3 fathahs at the same time. I just merged them all together, idgham, and I got 3 fathahs all at the same time. But can you say a fatah and a dhamma at the same time? So you can say one of them, and then the other one, the meaning is connected to the word, just not the sound. That's basically what he's saying, right? Yep. Alhamdulillah. The good news is that you will never have to go over this section again, right? But if you like this section, it's interesting. Tfaddal. Let's finish up.
وإذا عرفت أن من الناس من يجعل التشبيه في العمل ومنهم من يجعل التشبيه في العذاب فالقولان متلازمان.
Yallah, ya shaykh. You could have said this whole chapter and just said that. And we said that already. Some of the people say that the comparison is in what?
في العذاب.
في العمل. That's the first thing he says. Some of them say that the comparison is, where we at with Arafta, if you know that from the people are those that say that the comparison is in the action. So how is Allah comparing the munafiqeen and the kuffar to those who were before you? In their actions. The actions of the munafiqeen and the actions of the kuffar are like the actions of those before you. And from them are those that say the comparison is in the comparison in punishment. The punishment of those who came, of the munafiqeen and the kuffar, is like the punishment of those who came before you. Those are the 2 ways to understand this ayat, right? All of the grammatical stuff is just about how impactful the ayat is to you. But it's only these 2 things. Either Allah is comparing them in the punishment, or he's comparing them in the action. And if you want, you can make it easier. Allah is comparing them in the cause, the action, or Allah is comparing them in the effect, the punishment, the result, right? So which one is Allah comparing them to? He says, وَالْقَوْلَانِ فَالْقَوْلَانِ
متلازمان إذا المشابهة في الموجب تقتضي المشابهة في الموجب وبالعكس فلا خلاف معنوي بين القولين.
What you understand this, and the punishment is the comparison is between the action or the punishment, then the two statements are mutalaziman. What's lazim? They stick to each other. Because if somebody is compared, a comparison in the cause, the mojib, right, the cause, the thing that made something wajib, leads to a comparison in the, you can say mujib, or you can say mojib, you can say it either way, leads to a comparison in the mojib, or the mujab, right? The thing, a comparison in the cause leads to a comparison in the effect. So if you act like this person, you're going to get what that person got. And secondly, if you got that same thing, it's because you did what they did, right? So if you find yourself in a situation where Allah is punishing you, the same way he punished Fir'aun. Why? Because I'm acting like Fir'aun, right? So when you find yourself in these situations, don't be surprised. If you find a sweetness of Iman in your heart, the same way Abu Bakr found a sweetness in Iman in his heart. Why? Because I'm acting like Abu Bakr. And so whatever got me when I said that thing, and like this is a reality that you have to be aware of. Have you ever said something and like tasted the sweetness in your mouth? Like fi'lan. Have you ever, that's a lot of Iman. Have you ever done something and like you feel your reality like, man, that's Iman? If you've experienced that, then you say what? Man, I need to do more of that. Because I got that there. When I did that, I felt that way. And that made my Iman increase. And so I need to do more of those actions to get more of that. Have you ever felt something when you said it and it left a bad taste in your mouth? You felt your heart tremble out of, it's like, man, I need to avoid that. Because the way I feel right now is because I did that action. And Allah talks about the people who feel like that, and I don't want the result that they got for this action. So both statements are mutalaziman. Comparison in the cause is comparison in the result. And likewise, vice versa. So there's no contradiction based on either one of the meanings. Somebody might try to say, well, which tafsir is right? Is Allah comparing them in action or is Allah comparing them in result? Both of them. And they both mean the same thing. And so if one person explained it this way and one person explained it that way, both of their tafsirs are right. There's no contradiction because there's no contradiction in the meaning here. Go ahead. Let's finish up because we're about to finish that whole section.
وكذلك ما ذكرناه من اختلاف النحويين في وجوب الحذف وعدمه إنما هو اختلاف في تعليلات ومآخذ لا تقتضي اختلافا لا في إعراب ولا في معنى فإذا الأحسن أن تتعلق الكاف بمجموع ما تقدم من العمل والجزاء فيكون التشبيه فيهما لفظا.
Yallah. That's the end of it. He says, so just like there's no ikhtilaf in the tafsir, likewise, everything we mentioned from the ikhtilaf of the people of grammar about what you have to imply, what you have to remove from the sentence and what you can leave, i.e. and what has to be implied and what doesn't, all of that is actually just an ikhtilaf in the reasons behind the scene, right? And the why this word meant that. And none of those ikhtilaf, Sibawayh said this, Al-Farah said this, is it this? None of that affects a difference in the meaning. Not grammatically, nor in the meaning. All of it means, everybody says it means the same thing. It's just, what are you implying? What are you not implying? How much impact, how little impact, etc. And if that is the case, if all of it means the same thing, then when we do this tafsir, what should we say this tafsir is?
Everything.
Everything. And that's why I told you, everything means opinion in tafsir and the ikhtilaf of grammar is what? The easy one is the answer. So if we said that all of these things don't change the meaning, then let's say that the tafsir is all of it. So the better tafsir is that the word kaf is directly connected to everything that was mentioned before it, from the actions and the results. And this way, the comparison will be a verbal comparison, not an implied comparison. So Allah is telling you directly by his words, they did this and you all are doing like them, and they got this and you all are going to get like them, verbally. Let's finish that last sentence. وعلى القولين
وعلى القولين أولين يكون قد دل على أحدهما لفظا وعلى الآخر لزوما.
And as far as if you don't want to take the third opinion, which is what Ibn Taymiyyah just said, if you want to take one of the earlier opinions where you have to imply and drop stuff off, then on the first two opinions, the يكون قد دل على أحدهما لفظا, it will prove one of them verbally. So you can say it proves that the comparison is in the action verbally, but in the result non-verbally. Or you can say it proves the comparison in the result verbally, but in the action non-verbally. And the second one would be implied by necessity. And we don't have enough time to talk about this, but this is what they talk about in proving something. Have you ever heard these phrases? دلالة التضمن, or التطابق والتضمن واللزوم. Have you ever heard those three before? Something proves something directly, something proves something by inclusion, and something proves something by luzum, like by indirect. For example, they talk about it in the names of Allah. The name Ar-Rahman, what does it prove directly? It proves who Allah is and what Allah does. It proves the that and the sifa. So when you say Ar-Rahman, that is a direct proof of Allah's that and his sifa. What does it prove by inclusion? The name, or let's take a different one. Let's take Al-Khaliq. The name Al-Khaliq, it proves Allah, his self and his quality of creation directly. Because that word means the one who created, Allah, the Khaliq. So it proves him and the creation, the quality, directly, right? What does it prove by inclusion? One of the two. It proves the that by inclusion or the sifa by inclusion, because those two things make up the direct proof. And then it proves by necessity that Allah has knowledge, right? Does the name Al-Khaliq prove that Allah has knowledge?
Not directly.
Not directly. The name Al-Khaliq, it proves that Allah is Allah directly, and he has the quality of khalq directly. And it proves each one of those things by inclusion. Does it prove that Allah has knowledge or ability?
To create.
Not directly though.
Not directly,
It proves it indirect. Because how could you be a khaliq if you don't have knowledge? How could you be a khaliq if you don't have ability? So these are the three levels of evidentiary proof. Al-mutabiq, al-tatabiq, wal-tadammun, wal-luzum, wal-lizam, right? And when you use this, it changes the way you prove something, right? If somebody says something, is the result of what they say their opinion or not?
Their opinion.
For example, I'll give you, and we'll stop at this. I told you we was doing math last night. Does pie go on forever?
Somebody's gonna eat it.
Not pie, the food that you eat. The number pi, does it go on forever? He said somebody got to eat, huh?
It's always a blind. You don't.
The number pi, do you know the number pi? Anybody know the number pi?
Yes.
What is the number pi?
Like 27.
3 point, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, like that.
And they say it goes on forever, right?
Yeah.
That's my statement.
Yeah.
You understand? If I say that, that's my statement.
Yes.
does that mean that I'm saying pi is al-akhir? Because what did I say? It goes on. And who is al-akhir? Does that mean that Allah doesn't know the last number in pi?
Allah knows.
Infinity.
But if you say it goes on forever, that means there's no last number.
Yeah.
And so if you say there's no last number, does that mean Allah doesn't know the last number in pi?
Allah knows.
Allah knows.
Yeah. The last number, yeah.
But the point of it is, when I said that statement, pi goes on forever, does that mean that I meant that Allah doesn't know the last number?
No, it doesn't mean.
Because it only means that indirectly.
Yeah.
So when you prove something, an indirect statement isn't as strong as a direct statement. When you come to me and say, Abdul Hakim, are you telling me Allah doesn't know the end of pi? I say Allah knows everything, Akhi. No, I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
And so therefore, my indirect statement isn't as strong as my direct statement. And so that's why you have to understand these three different ways of how to prove something. Because sometimes there's a direct statement, and sometimes there's a partial statement, and then sometimes there's an indirect statement. And the indirect statement isn't as strong as the direct statement or the partial statement. And so this ayat, كَالَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ, the author is saying what? It proved it all directly. Yalla.